For years, the story of Nvidia in China has been defined by a cat and mouse game with Washington, with U.S. export controls tightening the leash on what American chip technology could and couldn't be sold in the country. But an exclusive new report from The Information reveals that dynamic has shifted, and now China regulators are now the center of focus. Joining me now is Qianer Liu, reporter at The Information. Qianer, welcome to TITV. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
So let's talk about these pair of reports that you published over the weekend and last week. Talk to us a little bit about how China's latest move is faring in terms of how they aim to grow adoption of their chips domestically.
Sure. We have seen a major escalation in China's effort to support local AI chip markets. In August, we reported that Chinese regulator asked tech companies to stop ordering Nvidia chips. Now they are blocking companies from using the Nvidia chips they already buy for new AI data centers. For example, ByteDance, Nvidia's biggest Chinese customer this year, is basically sitting on a stockpile of Nvidia chips it can't use. So this is Beijing forcing a full breakup from the US AI ecosystem. They are pushing companies onto homegrown AI chips from Huawei's, Cambricon's, Alibaba, and others. But most Chinese chips currently can only handle inference workload, not training, which is a compute-intensive process that actually build AI models.
So there's a lot there that I want to double click on. I think one of the pieces I wanted to get your explanation on here is, can you explain to us domestically in China how much competition there is from those players to Nvidia? You mentioned Huawei and some of the other companies that are developing their technology. How good is it? How much demand is there for it? Where do they fall short? Talk about that.
Sure. The regulatory pressure definitely force the regulatory pressure forcing tech companies of foreign chips like Nvidia's is definitely creating a captive market for local chip companies. So we can start from Huawei. Huawei is a clear leader in China's AI chip sector. They just unveiled an ambitious 3 years roadmap with 3 new AI chips using local high bandwidth memories, and a whole new design structure, which is basically confirmed 2 stories we previously did about Huawei. But no matter how hard Huawei tries, its chips are still weaker than Nvidia's best offerings in single chip performance. Each Huawei's chips designs, especially the flagship Ascend 910C, deliver about 1/3 the performance of Nvidia's most cutting-edge chips. So they are trying to compensate with scales and quantity by throwing massive numbers of these inferior chips together using advanced interconnect technology, scaling up to like more than 10,000 chips into a single supernode, and eventually maybe a million chips in superclusters. So Huawei's offerings can theoretically match or exceed NVIDIA's servers' performance.
Just because they're putting so many of them together.
Exactly. So basically, the company it's leveraging its networking expertise and China's power supply advantage to achieve competitive system-level performance to compensate single chip performance limitation.
And how does that compare to the H20 and the H200 chips now that have become so relevant to the Nvidia story? How do the Huawei chips compare to what Nvidia can sell in the country?
So most Huawei's chips, they are on sale in the market. It's actually better than the H20, which is the best chips Nvidia can and is allowed to sell to China. But for the rest of the chips like H200 and Blackwell chips, Huawei's chip is still far, far behind in single chip level. So that's why I say they were trying to compensate, trying to go with this quantity over quality route.
Right.
And for these other companies, Beijing-based Cambricon is another key player. Its stock already tells the story. Its stock surged over 100% in the past 3 months, as the Chinese investors are betting heavily on China's technology self-sufficiency push. Then you have other tech giants developing their own chips. Alibaba and Baidu have both started training their own AI models with their own in-house chips. Alibaba has been deploying their own chips called Zhenwu for smaller AI models since earlier this year. And while Baidu is testing new versions of its flagship Ernie AI system using its Kunlun chips. So Alibaba's Zhenwu chip can perform as good as Nvidia's S20 in their internal testing. Alibaba is also working on a chip for AI training, which in their internal testing can perform close to Nvidia's A100. A100 it's Nvidia's chip released in 2020. So you can, and there's other smaller player. Beijing have also fast tracked some smaller players like More Threads and MetaX response to UX export controls.
You talked about ByteDance and Alibaba. They obviously are customers of Nvidia, and they're trying to use that technology themselves to the extent they can actually get a hold of any of it, given the export rules and then the regulatory hurdles domestically. But when you talk to people on the customer side, people involved in ByteDance and Alibaba who are trying to get these chips, are they frustrated that they can't use the best-in-class NVIDIA chips to operate their own AI products and services?
I would say certainly yes. I would say absolutely when we talk to the AI developers and engineers, they want NVIDIA chips. The customer's preference is crystal clear. We just look at the buying behaviors. ByteDance, Alibaba, and Tencent, all these big tech giants together order more than 1 million NVIDIA S20 chips in just 3 months earlier this year. So roughly a 4-year supply. So they just trying to secure them before potential restriction. It's just Beijing create a different reality.
Wow.
So we already mentioned a few restrictions introduced by local regulators. So you can get the detention. So customers want NVIDIA performance and ecosystem. But the government is essentially mandating the domestic route.
I want to ask you about this point here you made in your story recently. You wrote that Washington's fear is not just that Beijing will achieve semiconductor self-sufficiency, but that China will export an entire alternative technology stack that weakens U.S. leverage. Can you explain a little bit to us this alternative technology stack? What exactly is it that China is trying to build, and what is it that the U.S. is so fearful of?
Right. So Washington's concern, I would say, goes beyond just China making its own chips. Like, I would say China making its own chip may be actually the smaller worry for Washington. The real fear could be China develops not just chips, but an entire ecosystem, the semiconductors, the servers, the AI models train and can be run efficiently on those Chinese chips, the cloud service, the software, even the technical standards in the future. And then China can export this complete package to countries around the world. So why does it matter? Because right now, US leverage comes from the fact that if you want cutting edge technology, you have to play by the American rules. Companies need access to NVIDIA's GPU, to US cloud services, to American AI models. It basically gives Washington an enormous geopolitical influence. But if China offers a parallel system, let's say, for example, Huawei's chips powering DeepSeek's models running on Alibaba's cloud infrastructure, now other countries have a second choice. Maybe it's not as advanced, as good as the American ones, but it's probably good enough for many like inferior applications.
Right. And then from the customers end, if they're able to get everything domestically, not just the chips, but also the models, the cloud services, to the extent that they have built a parallel ecosystem, essentially, I mean, why not do everything domestically? It'd probably be easier for them.
Yeah, exactly. And then for China, they can sell these packages to other country. They can sell this to other country. Maybe they would be willing to accept a good enough package, which is and with much cheaper costs. And some maybe crucially, it sometimes can come with less strings attached with like alignment with U.S. foreign policy. So I would say that.
Let me ask you this then: if that is the risk, how valid is that concern right now, and how risky is it? Is there evidence that China actually is marching towards that parallel ecosystem?
I would say this is already happening maybe in Global South. We can see already some of the Chinese tech stack deployed in Southeast Asia, Africa, Latin America. And we can see increasingly AI infrastructures being deployed in those areas that will shape how these countries and districts develop their AI models and their applications using a more cheaper AI tech stack.
Last question for you, Qianer. What are you watching for in this story as it develops moving forward?
Tons of things.
The reporter says with a sigh, "Oh my gosh, Akash, if I could tell you everything."
Yes, if we can have like a whole day, then I can tell you tons of things. I think the two top things related to the US China tech race. The first, we will try to keep an eye on Chinese companies. If Chinese companies, how or if Chinese companies can come up with new workaround to bypass US export control to get access to advanced Nvidia chips or cutting edge chip making equipment. Secondly, I think our Asia team is also keen to figure out, like we mentioned in some of the story, that if China has secure enough chip for training AI models, and if not, how company are tackling the training chip shortage, whether they are trying to improve it on model level or trying to get access to more smuggling chips, or like try to improve the local alternative on a system level. We're just trying to figure out how they can tackle an issue like that so that they can catch up with their US competitors.
Great. Well, Qianer, it is great to have you on the show. I know it's late for you, so we will let you get some sleep, and we look forward to having you back on the show very soon.